My wife vanished. No warning. Just a text. We're in Hawaii. Take care of the kids. 5 confused children stood in the parking lot. I called. No answer, so I made a decision. This morning my phone blew up. She was back. And furious 26 missed calls. Text that shattered everything. It was just past 7 p.m. on a warm Thursday evening. I had just pulled into the school parking lot, ready to pick up our 5 kids from an after-school enrichment program. My wife Madison had arranged the schedule for the week like she always did. Her texts were normally relentless. Pick up Tyler at 6:10. Don't forget Lily's piano book. Emma can't eat peanuts. Remember that? But that day, there had been nothing. Radio silence. As I parked and turned off the ignition, my phone buzzed. It was from her. Just one sentence. Text that didn't make sense. Not immediately. We're in Hawaii. Take care of the kids. I stared at it. Blinking. Rereading. Was it a joke? Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw them 5 little faces, our children walking toward the car. Backpacks slung, looking tired and confused. All 5 were supposed to be picked up by Madison. Where is Mom? Tyler, our 10-year-old, asked as he opened the door. I forced a smile. She had an emergency. I'm here instead. My hands were trembling back home. I dialed her once, twice, then 10 more times. Straight to voicemail. No explanations, no calls, no video messages, just silence. The next morning I texted again. What do you mean? We? Who are you with? What about the kids? Are you talk to me? Maddie? Please? Days passed. Then weeks, not a single response. She was just gone. I found myself cooking for 5, brushing long hair before school, packing lunches, comforting nightmares. I called her mother. She hadn't heard a thing. Her sister, clueless work. She requested unpaid leave. HR said casually. She'd planned this. She disappeared, leaving me alone with the full weight of fatherhood and no roadmap. But I'm not the man I used to be, not anymore. Something in me hardened. So, I made a decision. Chapter 2. The decision. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since Madison vanished. 2 weeks of chaotic school runs, forgotten lunches, and breaking down in the laundry room at 2 a.m. while folding socks that didn't match. 2 weeks of avoiding questions from the kids like, when's Mommy coming back? And did she take a plane or a rocket ship to Hawaii? And through it all, the silence from her side was deafening, but silence wasn't the worst part. It was the audacity, the assumption that I'd just shoulder it all, that I'd crumble quietly while she soaked in sunsets with whoever the we in her message was. On the morning of day 15, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the breakfast I'd made. Pancakes shaped like animals because Emma had cried the night before and said she missed Mom's giraffe pancakes. The kids had just left for school with the neighbor's teen who offered to help after watching me nearly fall asleep standing. That's when it clicked. She abandoned us, not just me, the children, their lives, their stability, for what? An escape, a fling, a new life. No more waiting, no more pleading. So I made the decision. I was going to protect our children, and I was going to rebuild a life without her. But first, I needed answers. I pulled out my laptop, fingers trembling with rage and resolve, and opened our shared cloud account. Madison wasn't tech-savvy, and I had set up all our devices, including the automatic backup from her phone and MacBook. I dug through sync photos, documents, flight confirmation emails, and there it was. A reservation at a luxury beach resort in Maui, 2 tickets, her name, and Ethan Delana. I froze. Ethan, my ex-business partner, my best man at our wedding. The man who 3 years ago had smiled at my children and toasted to forever. I leaned back in my chair as fury bubbled in my chest. She didn't just run away. She ran to him. She didn't just abandon her kids. She traded them for a fantasy. And now I was going to take everything from her, but I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I would wait. And when she came crawling back, as people like her always do, she would find her perfect dream life in ashes. Chapter 3. The setup. I didn't rage. I didn't scream at her or text Ethan death threats. That's what they'd expect. Some broken husband unraveling. No, I played the long game. I started by contacting a family lawyer, one of the best in the city, not for divorce just yet, but for custody. I needed legal protection for the kids. Madison had abandoned them without warning or a care in the world, and I had the text message, the flight bookings, and the complete absence of communication to prove it. My lawyer, Sarah Greaves, leaned back in her chair after reviewing the documents. she's toast," she said bluntly. "The court will eat this up. A mother who disappears without contact, leaves the kids without care, and runs off to Hawaii with another man. You have grounds for full custody and emergency protection orders. Perfect." Next, I met with a financial advisor quietly, secretly. I began moving our joint funds into accounts that were now solely in my name, not illegally, but with receipts, documented expenses, all tied to the care of the children, school fees, medical appointments, food, clothing, daycare, everything I had now been doing alone. I canceled her cards, froze the joint account. She'd left me the responsibility. Now she'd get none of the benefits. And then I waited 3 more weeks past. The kids had started adjusting, asking less about where she was. I kept them close. I didn't speak ill of her to them. I let her dig her own grave quietly. And just when I thought she'd never come back, she did. It was 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. When my phone lit up with her name, a FaceTime request, I ignored it. Seconds later, another, then a call, then 5 text messages in a row. "Where are my kids? Why aren't you answering? I'm back in town. We need to talk now. You're being insane. We need to co-parent. You're hurting them by not letting me see them." And it was the gaslighting, panic, the realization that her little fantasy was over, and I hadn't just waited, I had moved on without her. So I finally picked up the call. Her face appeared on screen, sunburnt and frantic, eyes twitching with fury. "Where are the kids?" she barked. "I didn't blink at school where they've been for the past 5 weeks. While you were too busy sipping cocktails with Ethan," she flinched. "You don't get to talk to me like that. I'm their mother." "You were," I interrupted coldly. "But mothers don't abandon their children with a text." Her voice cracked. This was an abandonment. It was just time for me. I needed a break. I stared straight into the camera. "Congratulations. You got your break. I got everything else." Then I hung up and waited for the next move. Chapter 4, The Fallout Begins. She showed up at the house the next morning. No call, no warning. Just the sound of tires screeching into the driveway, and a frantic knock at the front door. I opened it slowly. She stood there, dressed like she'd walked straight off the beach, designer shades in her tangled hair, a sleeveless white blouse, and fake calm, barely veiling the storm beneath. "Where are they?" she asked, voice tight. "School." I replied flatly, "Where they're supposed to be." She tried to push past me, but I stepped in her way. "You don't live here anymore, Madison." Her nostrils flared. "What the hell is wrong with you? I come back after a few weeks and suddenly you're acting like I'm some kind of stranger." "You are a stranger," I said, not raising my voice. "You vanished. You tested me like I was a babysitter. You didn't even say goodbye to your children." I needed space. I needed to breathe. "No, Madison," I said, crossing my arms. "You needed permission to fly to Hawaii with another man and abandon your family, and guess what? You never asked for it." She stared at me, jaw trembling. "You can't keep them from me, their mother." I said coolly. You'll be hearing from my attorney later today." She blinked. "You got a lawyer?" I didn't answer. I just handed her an envelope. It was full of documentation, a timeline of her disappearance, copies of the text. She sent receipts for everything I'd paid for. In her absence, emergency custody papers already filed. Her hands trembled as she flipped through them. I didn't mean to be gone so long," she muttered. "Ethan. He told me it was just going to be a short trip. Then we lost track of time." I laughed once. Cold, bitter. "You lost track of 5 weeks." She looked up, her eyes now wet. "I want to fix this." I tilted my head. "You mean Ethan dumped you?" Her silence confirmed everything. I continued. "You chose him over your children. And now that he's gone, you think you can come back here and pick up where you left off?" "I made a mistake." "No, Madison," I whispered. "You made choices." Then I closed the door behind it. I heard her fall to her knees and sob, but I didn't open it again. And later that evening, I got a call from Sarah, my lawyer. "She just tried to file for joint custody," she said, amused, "but she didn't know you already beat her to it. Court's reviewing everything with what we have. She doesn't stand a chance." I looked around at our quiet home, at the drawings taped to the fridge, at the family Madison had discarded like trash, and I smiled for the first time in weeks. Chapter 5. The public unraveling didn't take long for the cracks in Madison's carefully curated life to become gaping fractures. By the end of the week, court issued a temporary sole custody order. Granted, to me, Madison was only permitted supervised visitation, pending a full evaluation by child services. Her Hawaii getaway had raised serious red flags. But what shattered her most was the court's decision to mandate therapy and parental fitness assessments before she could even be considered for joint custody. She stormed into the hearing that day, wearing a crisp blazer, like it was armor, face powdered to perfection. But the moment the judge laid out the terms and called her actions reckless parental abandonment, I watched her mask crumble bit by bit. Meanwhile, I said nothing. I just handed over receipts, timelines, emails. I let her own choices speak louder than I ever could. And the humiliation didn't stop there. The school got wind of what happened when she tried to show up during lunchtime to surprise the kids. She was escorted off the property by security, while our oldest Tyler stood frozen behind the cafeteria window. That same evening, the PTA group chat exploded screenshots of her Facebook photos from Hawaii, cocktails her in a bikini on a yacht, Ethan kissing her neck were suddenly circulating like wildfire. One of the other moms, a friend of mine from the neighborhood, posted this. She vanished for a month to play mistress in Maui, and now wants to walk in like nothing happened. Nah, we don't play like that here. Madison deleted all her social media within the hour, but the damage was already done. The final blow came when Evan's wife called me. Apparently Madison didn't know he was married with a child of his wife. Lillian had tracked everything after finding a secret phone bill and hotel charges. She asked to meet in person, and I agreed. We met at a coffee shop the next day. She was elegant, composed, but I could see the pain in her eyes. I want you to know, she said, my divorce lawyer is filing tomorrow. I'll be naming Madison in the suit, alienation of affection. It's still legal in our state. I nearly choked on my coffee. And she added, if you need a witness for custody court, I'll testify. I nodded. You just became my favorite person this month. She smiled. Let's burn them both. Chapter 6. The Final Blow. By the time Madison stepped back into court a month later, she looked nothing like the woman who once controlled every room she entered. Gone were the designer outfits and sharp confidence. She wore a plain black dress that sagged at the shoulders, her makeup barely hiding the sleepless nights carved into her face. Her eyes, once so commanding, flicked nervously toward the judge, then to me, then to the empty seat where Ethan should have been. He never showed Lillian, however, did she took the stand during the custody hearing, calm and direct. I found explicit text between Madison and my husband while he and I were still married. She said the affair began long before they left for Hawaii. When they went on their little vacation, he told our son that he was on a business trip. He didn't even say goodbye. Then she handed the judge a printed folder with copies of photos, emails, and a letter Ethan wrote begging her not to ruin his public image. The judge, an older woman with no tolerance for games, stared at Madison like she was roadkill. I've heard enough, she said finally, voice hard. Miss Waters, your actions show a disturbing pattern of neglect and self-interest. You abandoned your children without warning, failed to make contact for weeks and placed them in emotional distress. Madison wiped her eyes. I was just overwhelmed. You were in Maui. The judge snapped. Not rehab, not a hospital. A resort. Her gavel slammed down. Full legal and physical custody awarded to Mr. Walker. Visitation denied until further court review. You will undergo a full psychiatric evaluation before the court reconsiders your parental rights. This court is adjourned. Madison gasped like she had been punched. Wait. No, please. I didn't mean. But the bailiff had already approached her. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stood, buttoned my coat, and walked out of the courtroom into the brisk morning air. Later that evening, Madison sent me one last message. You ruined me. I stared at the screen, then typed my reply. Number you, that all by yourself, epilogue. The kids are doing better now. Emma no longer cries before bed. Tyler started playing baseball again. Layla even drew a picture of Daddy, the hero, for her class project. As for Madison, last I heard she moved back in with her mother in a small town, 3 states away, unemployed and battling a lawsuit from Lily and Ethan. He lost his job, his marriage, and most of his reputation in our circle. Some say he's living in a cheap studio apartment alone. Me. I'm not bitter. I'm just done and free. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is living a life they can never be part of again. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you would have done in the comments below. Like the story, share it with someone who needs this energy, and subscribe to Lauren's Story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay tuned.